Good evening, everybody. Welcome into the Nittany Lion Sports Report. It's live here on BLS. Bob Long, Tyler Gehlhaus. So, we thought that today was as good as any day to go through the roster in painstaking, it's going to be fun though, fashion, and take a look at where this roster is going to be next year as they move into 2019. Tyler, we talked a lot about this coming into the show. We'll jump right into it. We looked at every single position and discussed who's going to redshirt this year, who's going to graduate, who might go to the NFL draft, and just to give the listeners and viewers a real sense of where this roster is going, and it certainly might surprise some folks. So where do you want to start on the defense? I'm a little partial to the linebacker.
I was going to start in the trenches,
all right,
because that's most important, Bob, in football, the trenches, offense and defense.
All right.
That's where games are won and lost.
Tyler,
so we'll start at the ends.
All right,
which, by the way, Sharif Miller and Yetur Gross-Matos played unbelievable on Saturday against the Badgers, and they're one of the top offensive lines in the country.
Popping off the page.
And they have actually been playing great all season long. I mean, Yetur Gross-Matos is easily the most improved player on this football team, top to bottom. I knew that he was good. I was worried when I heard that Koontz and Torrance Brown were finished for the year, maybe even career. But with that being said, I knew that Yetur Gross-Matos was going to be a good player. I did not know he would be this good this fast. A true sophomore for Penn State, number 99. He will definitely be back next year. Sharif Miller is one of those guys that I put up there with Bates and Sanders as probably the three most likely to have their names put in and to see where they stand in the NFL draft. Miller has started. This may be might even be his third year starting. He did redshirt, but even so, there's great depth behind him. Shaka Toney, Shane Simmons has played a little bit this year. He's been banged up. He's finally getting back into it. And then you have Jason Owe, who is very promising, younger guy, probably redshirting, it looks like, as well as Nick Tarburton. And then you have Daniel Joseph, that has done some nice things, has played a lot early in the season when they were down with some depth and injury problems. And, I think that this, if Miller comes back, which I'm not sure, where his status is going to be, I mean, the defensive ends can be extremely, extremely dirty next year.
Quick step back as we talk about the offensive line and now the defensive line. Jason Owe, true freshman, and Rasheed Walker. We talked about him on the O-line. Two of James Franklin and co.'s best recruiting jobs. Taking them away from Ohio State, Michigan, other shooters.
Yeah.
Tremendous job.
Yep.
Jason Owe, as you might remember, he made his decision and signed in December, did not announce it officially. Penn State kept it under wraps, went to the Under Armour All-American game, and he announced at that time. Jason Owe, a tremendous, tremendous get by James Franklin. Of course, we need to see what happens when he gets out on the field, but from a rankings perspective, with other shooters on the line, he knocked it out of the park with Owe.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see, like you said about Walker earlier with the strength conditioning program, is what kind of freak they're going to make Owe into, because he has all the intangibles of being a complete freak, not just a pass rushing freak, but an every down defensive end freak. Mm-hmm. So time will tell. I'm not sure he'll be freak status next year, but not far away.
Let's take a look not just at 19, but at 20. Gross-Matos. Something to worry about there after 3 years taking off?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you say that on the way home. I forget if I heard it on the radio or what, but somebody said if he keeps playing like this, he might only have one more year at Penn State.
Yeah.
I mean, and he's got NFL size right now. So I think he still has a lot to learn. But I'm not looking ahead. I know we're not looking ahead to 2020 yet, but that is something to definitely keep an eye out there. Is he could be a potential top draft pick in 2 years.
He's a guy that, even though Sharif Miller will wow you with the stats and whatnot, in some ways jumps off the page differently than Sharif Miller does.
Yeah.
And his ability to do both, stop the run and get after the passer.
And he's huge.
Absolutely enormous. Yeah. I mean, he can slide inside and play three. It's really unbelievable what he's able to do. And he's the guy that you almost worry about, in a very good way, him being that guy that next year we're talking about being NFL draft, not just potential, but likely.
Yeah, well, something to also consider with that is that he's a true sophomore. If he were a redshirt sophomore, I think that next year would definitely be his last year as a redshirt junior. But a lot of times, that extra year, even if you're redshirting, does help you a lot. And he wasn't able, and he should not have been redshirt, which he wasn't. But a lot of times, when you see juniors leaving early, a lot of times it is the redshirt junior leaving early as opposed to the true junior. But in this case, it could be the true junior, like Saquon Barkley was a true junior.
Yeah, and part of the reason I bring this up is because you look at a guy like Shaka Toney, and even Shane Simmons to some extent, although I think he can play every down. Shaka Toney has not shown the ability yet to be an every down type of defensive lineman, a down lineman. And I still don't think that's the case, obviously, as we look at that this year. I don't know if he'll ever necessarily be that. So if we look at Sharif Miller next year, he'll graduate next year. Gross-Matos could go to the NFL. Going into 2020, is it now a young Jason Owe who, as a redshirt sophomore, then would be going into that position leading the charge? Nick Tarburton, a guy that was recruited initially as a linebacker, they're beefing him up to be a defensive end. What will he be at that time? I think Shane Simmons hopefully is the beast that you're looking for.
Yep.
And then what follows Hakeem Beamon? What follows in the next recruiting class in Bills?
Even this recruiting class, there's still some big fish out there.
They're going after.
I think that Adisa Isaac from New York is he's trending towards Penn State. I think that Penn State will land him. He's one of the top-rated defensive ends. So the cupboard won't be, even when Miller and Gross-Matos leave, it won't be empty. I mean, they're recruiting at such a high level that they're getting they're getting a lot of the guys that they really want. So
let's stay in the trenches. Defensive tackle. It's been a very interesting position this year. Kevin Givens. Let's just say thank goodness for Kevin Givens this year and the presence that he's created and the consistency that he has shown. Robert Windsor has done a nice job. He was, as you mentioned off air, the player of the year defensively in the Big Ten.
Player of the week, right.
And
that's a big deal for him.
Year's not done.
He is from Wisconsin, so that was definitely a big deal for Robert Windsor. Much deserved. I know you're going to go down the list a little bit more, but I think the defensive tackles, Coach Spencer has done a great job with the whole D-line, but this group has actually really started to improve as the season has gone on, and it was a real area of concern, and the depth, quite frankly, still is not there, but Givens and Windsor are playing really good football.
They are playing good football, and they needed it. Allowing guys like P.J. Musper and Fred Hansard to come in spurts and give you key snaps when you need them.
And Hansard obviously is out for the year with an injury, but they did get meaningful minutes from him, and
absolutely.
And Mustapher is improving week by week as well.
Yep, Ellison Jordan, Aeneas Hawkins, Judge Culpepper, even Antonio Shelton, Damian Barber, guys that I think they believe can play at this level and will play at this level.
Yes, so I mean, Givens is the one on there that I have as NFL draft potential. Think Aaron Donald. I'm not comparing him to Aaron Donald, but an undersized. I wouldn't compare anybody to Aaron Donald, but an undersized, lower to the ground type of D tackle, 6'1", 285 type of guy. But he's got a great motor, and he is the full package at D tackle, and he's the one in that group that I would be keeping an eye on for NFL. But I think that he's another guy that could benefit from another year. This is his first year starting, so
let's now go to the linebackers. We continue on here.
You're really excited about the linebackers.
I do. I'm very excited about the linebackers.
And you should be, so.
You're watching the Nittany Lion Sports Report, just to give you a sense of where we are. It's 47 minutes after the hour of 8, flying by here. And we're going to hit the Penn State linebacking core. We're going through the entire 2018 roster as it sits. Who's going to be coming back? Who's leaving, who's redshirting, and just taking a look at how young this roster really is. So let's take a look at the linebackers right now. JaJuan Johnson, Cam Brown, juniors. Jan Johnson in some ways feels like a senior. He
actually on the roster is listed as a grad/junior, which I've never seen.
Yep.
A lot of times you see grad/senior, but he's in grad classes but with junior eligibility. So he has another year of eligibility, and then I don't know if he will still be in grad school or maybe med school or something at that point. But yes, junior eligibility. Most of these linebackers are coming back.
Cam Brown's had a tremendous year. It's going to be tough to displace him. Micah Parsons, as a freshman, has done a great job in spurts to spell Koa Farmer. I'm just going to take the folks that are viewing right down to the right-hand side. The verbal commits, Lance Dixon, Brandon Smith, recruits and a recruiting class that would make any program salivate. And they're coming to Penn State. They just need to sign that dotted line.
And they will. And Brandon Smith is the number 2 linebacker in the country, number 15 overall player in the country, according to 24/7 Sports. He's a complete stud. He's 6'4", 228. He's not really built like your prototypical linebacker, but I expect both these kids to get a lot of time as true freshmen. I mean, Dixon is the 13th best linebacker in the country out of Michigan, and I think that these two are, going to crack for playing time, and I think that you're going to see again another sort of youth movement. In that I include with Dixon, Smith, Parsons, Lucetta, Ellis Brooks, all freshmen right now. And nothing against Koa Farmer or Jake Cooper, the only 2 seniors, but Micah Parsons, as you mentioned, has been, even though Farmer's listed as a starter, he's been outperforming and out-snapping Koa Farmer on the defensive side of the ball. So that's not a huge loss there. And there's some other guys on that list that are coming back that might be surpassed by these younger guys coming in next year, and some of the current freshmen on the linebacking corp right now.
I want to talk about Brandon Smith. You said at that 6'4", what did you say, 6'5"?
6'4", so yeah.
Yeah, at that height, not your traditional linebacker at his weight. Listen, people wouldn't have said Tremaine Edmonds was a prototypical linebacker either, but he's an absolute stud.
Steelers, right?
Virginia Tech, Bills.
Bills, okay. The brother might play for whatever.
Yeah, his brother got drafted as well. That's right. Different position.
Brothers, yeah, so cool.
But, I mean, that's what you think about with a Brandon Smith, a freak of nature coming in, being able to be disruptive. Combine that with the speed and power of Micah Parsons, and then if they do go with Lance Dixon as the third, again, Cam Brown is still in that mix.
Right, and that's crazy. That's like what I'm most curious actually about next year is probably the linebacking room. Mm-hmm. I mean, who comes out of this? I mean, you have to imagine that Parsons and Brown will be starters on the outside. JaJuan Johnson, assuming he comes back, not that he would leave for the NFL, but he is a grad student. I mean, if he comes back, he's going to have a lot of competition at that middle spot between Brooks, Lucetta, and Smith. And I mean, Lucetta plays middle and sometimes outside, so it'll be interesting to see where they think he's best. But I mean, this is a good problem to have right now for Penn State, that you have younger guys coming in that are ultimately going to take probably be first, second on the depth chart at each of their positions.
So that's the linebacking core, and we're very excited about it. Excited to talk about it and figure out where it's going to go.
It might be back to linebacker U, which Penn State's known for, which is great.
So let's go to the cornerback position, where the Nittany Lions have a lot of tremendous players. Obviously, this year's class, I think, with Oruwariye having the career that he's had, especially in the last 2 years, it's been incredibly, incredibly impressive what he's been able to do. It is unfortunate. I think he'll always, in some ways, be remembered for the drop against Michigan State, but so far surpassed by the amount of huge plays, huge interceptions he's had. He had a great year last year in a time where I don't think a lot of people expected him to contribute.
I mean, he didn't even start last year, and he was second team All-Big Ten.
Over Christian Campbell and Grant Haley,
who started. And Amani Oruwariye was committed to Franklin and Vanderbilt at the time, and switched to Penn State. And he was a 3-star rated recruit, and it's worked out great. And looking at some of the early mock drafts, he's going in the first round of a lot of them, and some in the second. But it's still early, and they do a lot of testing and stuff. But good for him. Somebody that I wouldn't have expected to be in this situation at this point in his career is really making the most of it and playing unbelievable football.
John Reed has come back and had a really good year as well.
Started off a little rusty,
not ready to play,
right? And he has turned it on, and he's NFL draft potential. I'm not sure how what I think is going to happen there. It's a tough one to read with John Reed.
No pun intended.
No pun. Well, maybe it was pun intended.
Yeah, we'll have to.
Definitely wasn't.
But so then you look at some of the guys behind. Let's just say, for argument's sake, that Reed and Oberwarrior decide. Well, Reed decides to go for the draft. Oberwarrior will not return. Now you're looking at the guys. Tariq Castro-Fields, we've seen Donovan Johnson get meaningful snaps. Zach McPherson has got meaningful snaps. Of course, you remember McPherson, the one who took the low block on Wayno for Michigan.
Yeah, block.
Terrible call. Yeah. But verbal commits, Joey Porter Jr., Marquise Wilson, Keaton Ellis, State College boy.
Yeah, and Joey Porter Jr., that is Joey Porter from the Steelers' son. Out there in Pittsburgh, that is him.
That was a big get.
And he is a big cornerback. He's 6'1". He's rangy.
Yep.
Which, Penn State, we talked earlier about, they're going a little smaller, it seems like, at receiver. And really at cornerback, I mean, Oberwarrior was a lanky cornerback. Christian Campbell was a lanky cornerback. Tariq Castro-Fields is a lanky cornerback. So it's good to have these, and Keaton Ellis is a lanky quarterback, and even Marquise Wilson. So a little bit of a trend going on here, and I think that, you mentioned John Reed. I think that he will be back in the case that he does leave early. I think either way, Tariq Castro-Fields' injury bearing will definitely be a starter on one of the corner spots, whether that's with Reed or Donovan Johnson or somebody else. I expect Tariq Castro-Fields to really take the next step, and he showed great flashes, but I think it's time that he's going to get his time to shine next year as an everyday corner, every play corner, I should say.
Yeah, an interesting cornerback class there and group of players. I think next year will be very interesting there as well. I guess the last on the defensive side of the football. It's been a lot of fun, but we'll get it going with the safeties here. Nick Scott, a senior. Garrett Taylor, you have listed as an NFL draft potential. He's had a very good year.
Very good.
Unexpected
very
in some
good
ways.
Season. Very impressed, and that is good, especially moving into next year, assuming he comes back.
He's been in the right position at the right time as well for a lot of interceptions.
And that's what you want your safety to be.
As you look at the rest of these guys, Aaron Monroe, a guy that I think, Tyler, you and I both thought we'd get a little bit more time this year, perhaps would
especially
take Garrett Taylor's spot.
Two safety spots opened. Two safety spots.
Oh, you're saying for next year?
No. I'm sorry. Coming into this year. Marcus Allen and Troy Apke. So there were two safety spots open. I thought Monroe had a good chance at one of them. Could not capitalize on that. And same is true really with Lamont Wade, who is a very highly rated recruit. And
was that ever Nick Scott's spot to lose, really? I don't know necessarily.
I don't know.
Because Nick Scott was kind of play on, play off with Troy Apke even last year until Troy Apke grabbed that spot. Nothing
you're probably
Nick Scott
right there,
did wrong.
But you're right. Garrett Taylor, Monroe, and then the other guys, I thought that was going to be a battle. And Garrett Taylor, obviously, the coaches thought that he was the right pick, and he sure seems like the right pick as a starting safety, even though we haven't seen much from Monroe.
We mentioned it in the offensive side of this show. The Lackawanna Community College. Jaquan Brisker is the other one that Penn State is pulling from Lackawanna, and they've had a nice pipeline coming from there. It looks like that could be a relationship that they continue to look to develop in the future. Brisker and Tyler Rudolph, the verbal commits at the safety position.
Yeah, again, I think that the safety position should be improved next year as well. Losing Nick Scott, he's been a great player, great teammate, great leader for the last 5 years as he is a red shirt. Senior, he came in as a running back, actually, and then was supplanted by a guy named Saquon Barkley, and he's like, you know what, I'm going to switch positions, and hopefully I'll get more time. It worked out for him. He's been a special teams ace. So I think that this position next year is going to be a strength as well. I don't know who's going to replace Nick Scott. It could very well be Jonathan Sutherland. The new number 26 with dreadlocks is a hard hitter. He's got a lot of time this year. He was playing when Garrett Taylor was out for the first half against Iowa with the targeting from the previous week. So Lamont Wade's another young guy. Monroe could be back. There's plenty of talent in the safeties room, and again, it kind of like what we said with every position. I mean, you're getting better really at every position with the guys coming back, except with quarterback. We're really not sure, but we're going to have a quarterback with McSorley leaving.
Potentially running back.
Potentially running back as well. And maybe DN with Miller leaving, but there's still guys there. So
you're exactly right. Yeah. So that's our run through. You want to take a look
special
at the
teams?
All right, I was wondering if
the non-special teams this year. Getting better though, getting better. Especially Pinniger. I mean, all these guys are back except the long snapper who is on scholarship this year. And we don't need to sit here and break down who's going to be the long snapper next year. I mean, it's just not. It's not feasible, and
it's not material.
It's not, and they are important part of the team, obviously, and they have cost us a little bit this year too with the safety. But the less
one, we'll just let the coaches make that decision.
The less you know about your long snapper, the better.
There you go.
I'll leave it at that.
We'll let the guys in blue, the coaching staff, make those decisions. But that is, in a nutshell, a little bit more than a nutshell, in an hour-long discussion, broken up over 2 shows here, or what will be broken up over 2 shows, what we're looking at for next year. So you want to run them through real quick again here, Tyler? Start to finish. Quarterback, McSorley graduating.
McSorley's the only one you're losing.
Yep.
Guaranteed on offense. The only one that cannot come back.
So McSorley, looks like it's either Tommy Stevens or do one of the young guys get a shot? It looks like it's Tommy's position to lose if you're asking Bob Long.
And if you're asking Tyler Gehlhaus as well, because he came back this year when he could have taken a grad transfer. And I think that he's at least going to get first shot. I'm not saying if he struggles, he's not going to be the guy, but he'll definitely get first shot. But there's a lot of talent in that quarterback room next year.
At the running back position, we mentioned it. Myles Sanders, a guy who could decide to go to the NFL draft. I don't know if I see it this year in particular, but again, he's a guy that has the tools that these NFL teams will like and will want to draft. It was a reason why he was a number 1 overall running back coming out of high school, and he has not disappointed this year. Guys like that are always at that top tier tend to go in drafts. At the wide receiver position, JaJuan Johnson, I think, has unfortunately closed his case for going to the draft unless he goes to a combine, rips somebody off the charts somehow, and absolutely crushes it, which is possible.
But
absolutely possible.
Nothing against Johnson. He just hasn't done too much this year. But even if he leaves, I wouldn't even really consider it a big loss.
Well, it's a big potential loss. It's not a loss.
Potential loss, but
it's not a loss from
this year
production.
Right, exactly.
This year, but boy, I mean, let's just look at that
great.
again.
No, I mean, I hope he comes back.
Hamler, Dotson, Shorter, guys that can really move, have a lot of speed. If you have JaJuan Johnson as that over-the-top threat, that adds a lot to this wide receiver.
No, I 100%. I mean, I definitely want him back. Don't get me wrong, but you never know really what you could have had this year. So
sure. All right, tight ends, Freiermuth. I mean, he has locked that down. I made the comment. It's made people forget about Nick Bowers almost completely. Zach Koontz will come in, freshman, start to build into that big type of tight end that you want. He's obviously already huge from a height perspective. That could be a good 1-2 punch from the offensive line. We mentioned Rasheed Walker, Juice Scruggs. I like Des Holmes. I think Caden Wallace, Anthony Wiggin, guys to really look out for in terms of guys that are coming in this year. So on the offensive side of the football, they look really, really good. And then on the defensive side, Sharif Miller, hopefully coming back, we'll see. Yetur Gross-Matos, at least for 1 more year, perhaps 2. We'll just have to see there. Shaka Toney, Shane Simmons, guys that can be third down edge rushers. Jason Oweh, Nick Tarburton made the switch from linebacker to defensive end. Really, really good guys there as well. And again, young. The name of the game is young for this team.
Not a lot of seniors on this list.
Again, you continue to look here. Not a senior on this list. Kevin Givens, Robert Windsor, and then Mustapher from McDonough High School. Fred Hansard out for this year, but had quality snaps. I was impressed by him in his action this year, and I'm looking forward to seeing what Hawkins and Culpepper
and Jordan has been bit by the injury bug quite a bit, so we're not really sure what we're going to get out of him.
So then on the cornerback and essentially the defensive secondary side of the football, Oberwariye graduating, John Reed. Yeah, I agree with you. I don't have a good diagnosis on that one either. But Castro-Fields, Donovan Johnson, Zach McPherson, and then hopefully Joey Porter Jr. can
and
get
Trent
time
Gordon,
right away.
I think Trent Gordon could be a one of those really underrated recruits from the last year's top 5 class. I believe they were top 5 or close to. He's out of Texas. He was he and Isaiah Humphries, a safety, were out of Texas, and Trent Gordon, another bigger cornerback. I think that he's going to quietly have a very solid career in the blue and white, and it could be sooner rather than later we start to see him emerge.
And then the safety, Nick Scott, Garrett Taylor. Nick Scott graduating, Taylor I think will come back. And then it's really that second spot. Who's going to take that second spot? Will Garrett Taylor move to more of a free safety role like we've seen Nick Scott? I think he's so good, Tyler, at being able to approach the line of scrimmage, both run block and even cover a little bit, that I don't know if he's best suited for free safety. That said, we haven't seen him really play it much. We don't know whether he'll be really well equipped to do that. So I find that interesting.
Sure.
And then which of these other guys listed on here would be well equipped to be a free safety, or if they'll need to maneuver around based upon the capabilities of these other guys.
Yeah, I think, again, they're only losing Nick Scott, and I shouldn't say they're only losing Nick Scott because he has 3 interceptions this year, but there's a lot of players in there that have been, waiting for their time, and most of them are highly rated guys, and they're bringing in 2 very solid verbal commitments right now, and keep an eye on Brisker as a JUCO. Maybe he slides into that opposite spot of Taylor as a JUCO, a little bit older than these guys, a little bit more experience perhaps, so it'll be interesting for sure.
So there you have it. That's the run-through, and Pinniger.
Linebacker.
Oh, we missed the...
You missed your favorite
Man,
position.
how did I miss that? Linebacker. The commits for 2019, the verbal commits that will sign the dotted line in December, Lance Dixon, Brandon Smith, are what I am most excited about. The possibility, whether it's next year or the year after, of pairing Micah Parsons with Lance Dixon and Brandon Smith across that linebacking core is what makes me really, really excited. And Brent Pry has a tremendous system, but the other thing to really consider down the line is whether you would, with some of the, I don't want to say dearth on the offensive or the defensive line, whether you would consider going 3-4 with having a guy like Micah Parsons as a pure outside linebacker.
I mean, if it's something that would be interesting, and if their linebackers are that superior and you have to find a way to get them all in the field, by all means, a 3-4 would be very, very interesting to say the least. But I don't know. Obviously, I'm not a coach. But, you bring up a very good point because the talent in that room, especially the young talent, is phenomenal. Probably the best we've had in years, as far as I can remember, young talent at one position at linebacker. So it'll be interesting to see, but I don't know if Brent Pry would switch to the 3-4. I mean, he's been doing the 4-3 forever. So
it was
I don't know.
More to just toss it out there as, but you have these unbelievable playmakers that
You have to find a way to get them on the field, and frankly, they do rotate their linebackers a good amount.
They do.
That is one thing. Penn State staff keeps their guys fresh. I mean, they do a lot of rotating. I'm not sure if that's good or bad. I mean, so far it's worked out for them, but keeping the guys fresh, and it's always a good thing to have depth because injuries happen.
Yeah, the last thing I'll say on that 3-4 is I don't think it'll happen. Now, again, this is not the old regime, but could you imagine back in the days of the old coaching staff here at Penn State going to a 3-4? It's not something that has historically been done. That shouldn't mean anything. It should be made a statement in a vacuum, but I just think that Brent Pry has a system, and I think they're just going to focus their recruiting on getting highly skilled interior 1 and 3 technique defensive tackles, and that will, I won't say cure the woes, because I think those guys are already on the roster. Fred Hansard and P.J. Mustipher can serve as that 1 or 3 as needed, and obviously the defensive end position has been recruited very, very well. So I think they'll stay at the 4-3, But I do believe that they can continue to get more and more complex as they get better and better athletes on the field and allow them to be more creative.
Yeah, and obviously you said earlier that there's obviously still there's 3 games left, 2 regular season games left in the bowl game, and hopefully Penn State wins all 3 of them, go to 10-3, another 10-win season, 3 in a row. But it's hard not to look ahead already to what could be the 2019 roster with other players still being recruited to come in for that. That could be a very good team, as we see on paper here, that the majority of the talent is returning. So it's something to definitely look forward to.
Good work this week, working on this and sort of helping to frame this show. It was one that I think we wanted to do for a long time. You especially were talking about this. Hey, let's take a look forward at this team. Let's take a look forward at this roster over the long term. So thank you for waking me up to that.
My
this
pleasure.
is a good show idea, and actually looks like it might be our last one for some time here.
Yeah.
Thanksgiving, and then all of a sudden they're done the regular season.
Next week we will not be doing Maryland just because of Thanksgiving week and other obligations. I'll go on the air and say that I fully expect Penn State to win both those games handily. Maryland being a little tougher, but they will win both handily. And then, next time we meet, we will know where Penn State is going for a bowl and their opponent. And a lot still on the table. Still a chance at a New Year's Six, believe it or not. So New Year's Six or maybe a Citrus Bowl in Orlando, Outback in Tampa, a lot of possibilities, so it'll be interesting to follow.
Good stuff. Well, I appreciate doing this with you all year. We'll be back in early December as well to talk about that bowl game, talk about the signing day and what Penn State has done on that regard.
Absolutely.
So, Tyler, appreciate your time tonight. Thanks for being with me, as always, being my reliable co-host here. Thanks to all the people that have watched, listened all year on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, I guess not Instagram, iTunes. That's the one that begins with I. It only took me to the end of the year to figure everything out here. And for the folks that are followers of BLS, we're also going to start our Villanova basketball show at some point as well. The Villanova Wildcats are underway. Huge game tomorrow against Michigan, a fellow Penn State rival.
In your Michigan colors there, Bob?
Well, I had to get it out of the way
Blue
today
pants.
so that I'm not wearing tomorrow.
There you go.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have worn it all week, but that's just me.
That's fair. Well, you're more committed to your craft than I am. I think everybody knows that. All right, folks, until next time, he's Tyler. I'm Bob, saying so long here from our Bluebell Studios. Thanks, everybody, for being a part of this. We're not going away. We'll just be back in a little while, and we'll be talking more Penn State football as the calendar turns to December, and we preview bowl games as well as the signing period, the first signing period in December. So we'll talk to everybody then. Have a great evening, and have a happy Thanksgiving.